Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The war in West Asia is spreading. It was Israel versus Hamas before. Now it's the West versus the Houthis. The Houthis have been attacking ships in the Red Sea since November. The West has finally had enough. The US and the UK have launched strikes and they haven't ruled out further escalation. Tonight we'll tell you how this could trigger a much bigger war in West Asia. In the Maldives, President Muizu wants Indian soldiers out. He set a deadline. Is this now a personal battle for him? And it's not just the Maldives. Some other Indian neighbors are also having second thoughts about India. We'll tell you why and what this means for New Delhi. In Taiwan, it's a win for the pro-independence ruling party again. In China, there are fears of another Wuhan virus resurgence. In Pakistan, eggs are selling for 400 rupees a dozen. And in India, passengers are punching pilots and eating dinner on the tarmac. What's going on with the country's aviation sector? All of this and more coming up. The headlines first. Indian Prime Minister Modi speaks with Russian President Putin. They discussed the Ukraine war and Russia's presidency of the BRICS. The leaders also wished each other well in the upcoming elections. The phone call comes as the war in Ukraine nears 2 years. A suspected car ramming in central Israel kills a woman and injures at least 13 others. 2 Palestinians have been arrested. Police say the suspect stole the vehicles and then carried out the coordinated car rammings in Ra'anana. Turkey to deport Israeli footballer Sajiv Jehezkel. He was detained for displaying a message on Gaza during a match. The 28-year-old was suspended by his Turkish team. Israel has condemned Ankara's actions. The war in West Asia has soured ties between the two regional powers. The Philippines will upgrade its outposts in the disputed South China Sea. This comes amid rising tensions with China. Recently, there have been multiple standoffs between the two countries in the disputed reefs. Manila and Beijing have a long history of maritime territorial disputes. Zambia is battling its worst cholera outbreak in years. More than 350 people have died. There are nearly 9,000 active cases. The president has urged citizens to relocate to villages to decongest major towns. And it's raining money, but only for the super rich. Since 2020, the world's 5 wealthiest men have more than doubled their fortune, while 60% of the world's poorest, are almost 5 billion people, have become poorer. It's day 100 of the Israel-Hamas war, but the focus is elsewhere because a much bigger war is brewing, a war between the US and the Houthis. It all started last year. Yemen's Houthis began attacking commercial vessels. Some 26 ships have been targeted so far, most of them in the Red Sea, and this has hit businesses. Trade through this route is down by 40%, 40% down. Most ships are avoiding the Red Sea. Instead, they're taking the long route around Africa. So what did the US do? They cobbled up a coalition to fight the Houthis, and on Friday, this coalition hit back. Missiles and rockets pounded targets in Yemen. Take a look at this. Here's a quick rundown of the attacks. The United States did most of the damage. They fired Tomahawk cruise missiles on Yemen. Reports say around 100 of them. The United Kingdom also joined in. Their fighter jets dropped guided bombs on Houthi targets. And casualties? The Houthis say 5 of their men were killed, but this attack was not about taking out men. It was about taking out machinery. The US says around 60 targets were hit in 16 locations. 60 targets in 16 locations, like the capital Sana'a, the port city Hodeidah, and the northern Houthi stronghold of Sada. The Houthis counted 72 strikes in all. So what's the strategy here? US President Joe Biden wanted to dismantle Houthi attack sites to limit their ability to target ships. And did he achieve that? Both Biden and his allies say yes, they did.
Bombing the Houthis if the attacks don't stop. Will you continue with the strikes, sir?
We will make sure that we respond to the Houthis as they continue this outrageous behavior, along with our allies.
Were the strikes last night, sir?
Yes. I don't think there's any civilian casualties. That's another reason why it's a success.
Well, we've carried out a series of strikes together with allies which will, we believe, degrade and disrupt the capability. The types of things that we've targeted are launch sites for missiles and for drones. Initial indications are that those strikes have been successful.
Now, there are two things to note here. One, Joe Biden says he could order more strikes. And two, he thinks the attack was a success. I'm afraid he spoke too soon. Take a look at how Yemen responded to the airstrikes. A sea of people hit the streets, they chanted anti-US slogans, they burnt the US flag and they called for retaliation. And that's exactly what the Houthis are doing. Because 48 hours later, they were back at it. The Houthis launched a cruise missile at a US warship, the USS Laboon. That's what they targeted. The missile was shot down by a fighter jet, but chances are the Houthis will try again, and there lies the risk. What if one of these missiles or drones hits an American ship? What if it kills a US sailor? Then Joe Biden will be tempted to escalate. After all, it's an election year in the US. No one wants a president who cannot protect his soldiers. So this is a risky game. And there's a downside too. If Biden escalates the fighting, Houthi allies could join in. They could join the battle on Yemen's side. Who are these allies? The Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq, or the Iranian armed forces. All of them support the Houthis. If they join the conflict, it could trigger a much bigger war, and the US and its allies on one side, Iran and the Houthis on the other. That's what we'll have. And what would such a war look like? Maybe the Russia-Ukraine war times 10. So US President Joe Biden faces a tough call. His preferred option is airstrike, shoot and scoot. Don't get too close to the action. That's what he wants to do. But that may not work against the Houthis, because remember, these are battle-hardened fighters. They've braved relentless carpet bombing by Saudi forces for years. So a few cruise missiles will not spook the Houthis. Plus, there are legal questions. Biden and Sunak just bombed a country. They did so without taking their parliament's permission, without taking the United Nations permission. So questions are being asked. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will address the British MPs today. Joe Biden is being asked to explain himself by the US Congress. The question is, what happens next then? We can't rule out more strikes. So this could end up becoming a tit-for-tat saga. At the same time, we are seeing more diplomacy. Look at these four developments. Number one, the US has sent a private message to Iran. Now, Iran, as you know, supports the Houthis. Washington is now using back channels. They're asking Iran to control the rebels. Development number two, India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar is in Iran. Multiple Indian ships have been attacked so far. Some 10 Indian warships are guarding the Indian Ocean. So clearly, New Delhi is worried about these developments. Minister Jaishankar will be hoping to leverage India's ties to keep Indian ships safe. Development number three, the UAE has criticized the Houthi attacks. And why is that important? Because no Arab country has spoken against the Houthis so far, or had spoken. They only disagreed in silence. But now Abu Dhabi has broken that silence. Maybe more Arab nations will follow. And development number four, China is suddenly concerned. Their Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Egypt on Sunday. Listen to what he said.
The situation in the Red Sea has escalated sharply recently, and China is deeply concerned about this. The waters of the Red Sea are an important international trade channel for goods and energy. China calls for a halt to the harassment and attacks on civilian ships.
It's a crucial moment in this conflict. Not the Gaza one, but the Red Sea one. The Houthis are primed for battle. Their people and their fighters are rallying behind them. On the other side are Joe Biden and Rishi Sunak, two embattled leaders with low popularity. Will they gamble more political capital on an escalation? Things are moving fast in the Red Sea. We should find out soon enough. Now let's take stock of another conflict. India versus the Maldives. It's intensifying. The headlines are going from bad to worse. It started with some ministers speaking against India and calling Prime Minister Modi names. They were suspended. Indian social media decided to boycott the Maldives. The Indian government expressed displeasure, and now the Maldivian president has weighed in. His name is Mohammad Muizzu. At the height of this controversy, he was in China on a 5-day visit. Now he is back, and over the weekend, Muizzu had a message for India.
We may be small, but that doesn't give you the license to bully us. Do
you see what he's doing there? Painting India as the enemy. It's an old strategy for him. It won him the election. He came to power 2 months back, and since then he's been at it, speaking and acting against India. It's like he's making this fight personal. His approach has become more confrontational, his tone more aggressive. Muizzu has issued an ultimatum to India: take your troops back by the 15th of March. That's the deadline. A meeting was held yesterday between officials from India and the Maldives, and here the deadline was announced. Indian troops should leave the Maldives by March 15. And how many Indian troops are there? More than 70. What are they doing in the Maldives? Offering support. Let me explain. A few years ago, India donated some aircraft to Mali, 2 helicopters and a Dornier aircraft. They were given in 2010 and 2015. What for? To deliver humanitarian aid, for rescue and reconnaissance, and for medical evacuations. India says these soldiers are stationed in Mali to assist in these operations. And they were sent there on Mali's request. In 2009, Mali reached out to New Delhi. It was worried about terrorism. It lacked military assets. It had no surveillance capabilities. So the island resorts were vulnerable. Mali feared that terrorists could take over the resorts. So it turned to India for help, and India obliged. India deployed military assets to protect the Maldives. This cooperation has lasted for over a decade. Now President Muizzu wants to dismantle it. The question is why? And for the answer, we must decode Muizzu's politics for you. There are 2 parts to it: the foreign policy that prioritizes China and the domestic policy that prioritizes radical Islam. Both are dangerous for his country and for the region. I'll start with the foreign policy. India out, China in. That's what Muizzu is trying to do. India out, China in. He calls China, and I'm quoting, the closest ally of the Maldives. Last week, he made a pitch to welcome Chinese tourists. Earlier, the number of Chinese tourists to the Maldives was higher. Then Indian visitors outnumbered them. Now Muizzu says China, and I'm quoting again, China should reclaim the top spot. He met the Chinese president. They signed 20 agreements, from tourism cooperation to disaster management, blue economy, investments. Muizzu and Xi Jinping covered a lot of ground. China even promised grants to the Maldives, but no numbers were disclosed. Either way, he is rolling out the red carpet for the dragon and dragging his country further into debt. Whichever way you look at it, it doesn't look good. The second issue is the domestic policy that emboldens radicals. Just look at some recent events. In 2022, there was a yoga event in Mali organized by India. Radicals stormed the event. They disrupted it. Why? They said yoga is against the tenets of Islam. In 2021, radicals targeted Mohammad Nasheed. He was Speaker of the Parliament. Before that, he was the President of the Maldives. Mohammad Nasheed. He faced an assassination attempt in 2021. Radicals tried to kill him with a bomb. Nasheed survived, but the attack showed what the radicals were capable of. And now Mohammad Muizzu is in power. He is emboldening them. Soon after he took office, Muizzu promised to prioritize Islam. Let me quote from his statement. The new government will prioritize Islamic religion and Maldivian national sovereignty above all. Those were his words. And now he's walking the talk. Under his watch, Christmas celebrations were banned in the Maldives. This time, the local police released the order, banning all Christmas celebrations. This is the president pandering to his base. Some 500,000 people live in the Maldives. More than 90% of them are Muslim. So Muizzu is using his religious identity to secure his voter base and throwing out the troops that guard against terrorist threats. It's a risky strategy. Like I said, dangerous not just for the Maldives, but for the entire region. So Muizu is serious about India. He wants New Delhi out of the Maldives. But here's the bigger problem. It's not just Malé. Most South Asian capitals seem to be having a rethink, like Nepal and Sri Lanka. Now, obviously, this raises questions. Like, why is it happening? What will be the impact? And what can India do to fix it? Let's understand the basics first. This is what South Asia looks like. Look at the map. It's a region made up of 8 countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. 8 countries make up South Asia. Among them, India is a giant. Our population is 1.4 billion. The rest of South Asia put together is under 500 million. Same with the economy. India's GDP is around $3.3 trillion. The rest of South Asia, around 1 trillion. The point of this comparison is quite simple: to tell you that India looms large over this region, over these countries. Now we come to the geopolitics, and we'll keep Pakistan and Afghanistan out of it for obvious reasons. Also Bangladesh, because Dhaka remains one of India's closest partners in the region. It's a relationship forged in the battlefield, so India-Bangladesh ties are an exception. Let's focus on the rest, because they have all been traditional allies of India. Whether it's for trade or investments or disaster relief or tourism and cultural exchange, New Delhi is fiercely protective of this region. It's been like India's strategic backyard. But now it's changing. In 2020, Nepal triggered a spat with India. Their new map showed Indian territories as part of Nepal. In Sri Lanka, China is everywhere. From roads to bridges to ports to airports, Colombo also welcomed Chinese spy vessels in the last few years. These were unprecedented moves. In Bhutan, you had border talks. Their then foreign minister visited China last year. He agreed to settle the Bhutan-China border soon. Just one problem though, India was not in that room. New Delhi has traditionally advised Bhutan on such matters, but this time that did not happen. And finally, you have the Maldives, the extreme end of the trend. We've discussed their plan in detail. It's not just India out, it's also China in. The question is, why is this happening? Well, some people may ask, why not? After all, these are all independent countries. They can choose their own foreign policy. So why should India care? And there is merit in such an argument, because occasionally the big neighbor has become the big brother. Meaning India has pushed too far in some instances. But here's the flip side. New Delhi has plenty of strategic concerns, the biggest being China. Beijing already has a port in Sri Lanka, the Hambantota port. They're developing one in Pakistan, in Gwadar. They're also eyeing one in Bangladesh. Chances are the Maldives will be next. Now, what if Chinese warships are stationed at all these ports? What if Chinese soldiers guard them? It's a serious concern for India. New Delhi could be surrounded by hostile warships. So my point is quite simple. This is not about turning South Asian countries into chess pieces, because that would be unacceptable. This is about securing India's own interests. And to do that, New Delhi needs to be on good terms with these countries. But it's easier said than done, because China has a much bigger checkbook. They will also support any sort of regime, junta, dictator, monarch, it doesn't really matter. China will do business with any of them. India, though, has some principles and some red lines. We've seen that in Afghanistan and Myanmar. So what can New Delhi do given all of this? Well, giving up is not an option. India shares historic ties with all of these countries, so standing by them is important. Like in Sri Lanka in 2022, when crisis struck, India is the one that came to the rescue. Or in Nepal during the earthquake of 2015. Or in the Maldives during the water crisis of 2014. India has and should remain the first responder. It builds a lot of goodwill. It also keeps these countries stable. The last thing you want is some social upheaval in the neighborhood, something that China can further capitalize on. Secondly, it's about damage control. India may have a neighborhood first policy, others may not. So New Delhi needs to look at the second best thing. If India isn't first, it shouldn't be last. And to be fair, that's what the government is trying to do. When Mohammad Muizu won the election, Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated him. He also met Muizu in Dubai. Even after this row, New Delhi has been poised. The government has handled things maturely. It is social media that has made it worse. Maybe it's a good idea to delink the two, because social media does not represent public policy. If it did, the US would be pro-Palestine and not pro-Israel. So the takeaway is quite simple. Keep emotions out of foreign ties. New Delhi has done that perfectly in Ukraine and Gaza. The key is to also do that in the neighborhood. And speaking of tense neighborhoods, let's look at what's happening in Taiwan. Taiwan held elections on Saturday, and the ruling party won. That's the Democratic Progressive Party. They've managed to hold on to the presidency, and this man is the president-elect, Lai Ching-te, who also goes by the name William Lai. He's also the current vice president of Taiwan, so basically he's got a promotion. But not everyone is happy about it, especially China. Beijing is furious at the election result. On the other hand, the US is quite pleased. In fact, Washington has sent a high-level delegation to Taiwan to congratulate Lai Ching-te on his victory. And this delegation is being led by a former US National Security Advisor. He met Taiwan's president-elect today, and this is what he had to say.
We are thankful for the United States' long-term support of Taiwan. I believe our relationship will advance in a stable direction through our continuous hard work and become an important force to safeguard the peace and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific.
That is Dr. Lai Ching-te, the son of a coal miner who became a Harvard-educated doctor, eventually joined Taiwanese politics and became a thorn in Beijing's side. Lai has been navigating Taiwan's politics for years. He served as a member of parliament for over a decade. Then he became the mayor of the city of Tainan for about 7 years. Then he was chosen as Taiwan's premier in 2017. In 2020, he became the vice president, and now he'll be the president. It's quite the political journey. Lai Ching-te will take office on the 20th of May this year, and he plans to continue the policies of his predecessor, which is why Beijing has a problem. Because Taiwan's ruling party is seen as pro-independence. They want independence from China. You see, Taiwan is a self-ruled island. Beijing wants to reunify it, to make it a part of China. But Taiwan's ruling party is against it. And by extension, so are a majority of Taiwan's people. Because this election was basically a referendum on China, and the people chose Lai. He once called himself a pragmatic worker for Taiwan independence. And this is a red line for China. They will never allow Taiwan to become an independent nation if they can help it. They keep saying a reunification will be achieved by any means necessary, even an all-out invasion, a war. Beijing refuses to rule out that possibility of taking Taiwan by force. Which is why Lai Ching-te is the worst possible choice from Beijing's perspective. He's pro-independence, he has good ties with the US, and he's vowed to defend Taiwan in the face of Chinese aggression. It's the worst combination for Beijing. So as you can expect, they're acting out. Yesterday, China conducted a live-fire naval drill. They made it a point to use a boat that succeeded older models, the 611. The older boat fought in a battle between China and Taiwan way back in 1965, and China says it won that battle. So this naval drill was basically a message, a threat to Taipei. And that's not all. Chinese officials have been on the offensive since Saturday's election. They've spouted fire both at Taiwan and at any country that dared to congratulate them on the election result.
Regardless of changes in the situation on the island of Taiwan, it does not change the fundamental fact that there is only one China in the world, and Taiwan is an inalienable part of China. Taiwan has never been a country, nor will it be in the future.
Anyone who violates the One China principle in the international community is interfering in China's international affairs and infringing on China's sovereignty, and will surely be opposed by the entire Chinese people and even the international community. The forces of Taiwan independence seriously threaten the benefit of Taiwan people, severely damaging the fundamental interest of Chinese nation, heavily undermine the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait. This is a road that will lead to a disaster and a dead end.
Despite the dire warnings, some countries have sent good wishes to Taiwan. The US, the UK, France, Singapore, Japan, all of them congratulated the island. India has not commented on the election yet or sent a message to Taipei. But Beijing is upset about the others, although they did have a diplomatic victory today. One of Taiwan's last allies has abandoned it in favor of mainland China. We're talking about the Pacific island of Nauru, the Pacific island nation of Nauru. They've dumped Taipei. Let me explain how this works. Most countries officially follow the One China policy, including India, the US and its Western allies. They all follow the One China policy. They recognize only One China, and that is ruled by the Communist Party in Beijing. That's One China. So they officially do not recognize Taiwan as an independent nation. In fact, only 12 countries in the world recognize Taiwan, and Nauru was one of them, but it has defected, and the timing did not go unnoticed.
China has been deliberately trying to lure our diplomatic allies over the years and activated the plan during a critical moment after our election was over, with the aim to attack the freedom of democracy that Taiwanese are proud of. This is how it blatantly shows the totalitarian nature of communism to the world. Taiwan's government hereby strongly condemns totalitarian China for its powerful bullying of Taiwan and suppressing of democracy with an arrogant attitude.
The condemnations won't bring back Taiwan's allies, though. And this is just a preview of what their new president, Lai Ching-te, has in store. He'll be up against the full might of Beijing. So for the next 4 years, they're sure to be tough for this self-governed island. Meanwhile, China is bracing for another attack from its homegrown virus, the Wuhan virus. A resurgence is being reported thanks to a new subvariant called the JN1. Now, JN1 is linked to the Omicron that drove a surge in cases 2 years back. It's from the same lineage. But JN1 carries a mutation, something that gives it extra immune evading capabilities, and that is what makes it so contagious. China's current rate of cases is quite low, but authorities are worried about a rebound. So will the pandemic make a comeback in China? And more importantly, is Beijing prepared to deal with it this time? Our next report tells you.
Residents dragged from their homes, patients sent away to quarantine camps, strict lockdowns, mass testing, constant scanning of health codes, huge protests. China has seen it all since the Wuhan virus first spread across the country. Since 2020, Beijing has tried it all. There was zero COVID, vaccinations, controlled movement. Then there was reopening. There was deletion of COVID data. Also, how the virus first emerged. Beijing's Wuhan virus story may look like it has come a full circle, but it isn't over yet, even after 4 years. For the rest of the world, the Wuhan virus is a distant memory, but China is wary again. Health authorities predict another resurgence, and it could be fueled by the new JN1 subvariant. The JN1 is a new COVID-19 variant. It is linked to Omicron, but it has greater immune-evading capabilities, and that is what makes it contagious. The WHO has called it a variant of interest, which means they are tracking it. At least 40 countries have detected the JN1 variant. Many of them are seeing a surge. China too is bracing for a rise, and it's because of 3 reasons. One is this new dominant variant. Second is a gradual downward trend in influenza. And 3, decline in population immunity. Authorities worry all of this might lead to a Wuhan virus resurgence this month, with the JN1 becoming the most dominant variant in the country. For now, the Wuhan virus cases remain low. Medical services too are stable. Most respiratory diseases are influenza. But authorities are worried about an upward trend in cases, especially those linked to the JN1 variant.
With the approach of the winter vacation and the spring festival holiday, large-scale population movement and gatherings may accelerate the spread of respiratory diseases. It is essential to enhance monitoring and early warning, strengthen the management of key locations, and focus on key prevention and control measures.
So is China equipped to handle another resurgence? Hospitals are already preparing. Training programs are on the rise. There is more human resource allocation. And they are using technology to streamline the process. So Beijing looks prepared. But has it learnt its lessons? With China, you can't really tell. Transparency and truth have never been their strong suit anyway.
One story is dominating social media in India today. The chaos at the airports, the delayed flights, the angry passengers. Take a look at this.
Please, let's not you are lying.
This happened yesterday on a Delhi to Goa flight. The departure was delayed by 13 hours. The passengers were sitting inside the plane. It's not clear for how long, but by most accounts, for several hours. And this man making the announcement was the plane's co-captain. He informed the passengers about the delay, and that's when one traveler lost his cool. He attacked the co-captain. Now, let me say this, nothing justifies this behavior, this sort of an attack. But the last 48 hours have been ugly for Indian aviation. Hundreds of passengers have been left stranded, leading to overcrowding at many airports. Airport staff have been under immense pressure. They're dealing with many frustrated, upset and angry passengers. The situation is quite bad. Take a look at this now. Those were the passengers of a Goa to Delhi flight. Their flight got diverted to Mumbai. The passengers were having dinner on the tarmac. And what triggered this chaos? Fog. A thick blanket of fog has engulfed North India. It is severely impacting air travel, especially from New Delhi. The pilots cannot see the runway. Visibility has been close to zero, so they cannot fly the planes. The Indira Gandhi International Airport, or IGI, is India's main aviation hub. It's the largest airport in the country. Since yesterday, it has been facing major disruptions. The fog has affected the airport's operations. There was a complete halt for 6 hours yesterday. No flight left the airport from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Now, this had a domino effect. Airports across India felt the impact. Flights were delayed at multiple airports. It was a chain reaction. You see, airlines use the same plane for multiple sectors. It works a bit like your delivery person on Swiggy or Zomato. Sometimes they pick up multiple parcels from the same restaurant, then they make deliveries. That's how the airlines work too. In some cases, a plane and crew cover as many as 3 routes in a day from one place to another and then back. Now, since flights did not take off from Delhi, they disrupted the entire flight schedule for other cities as well. Passengers missed their connecting flights. In some cases, flights had to be cancelled. In fact, I have some numbers for you. Yesterday, nearly 600 flights were delayed, 76 were cancelled. This was at the New Delhi airport alone. 600 delays, 76 cancellations. What about the others? In Chennai, 47 flights were cancelled. In Kolkata, 164 flights saw delays and 29 cancellations. Bengaluru, 58 flights were delayed. What about today? There were fewer disruptions, but even then, more than 100 flights were delayed across India today. So the question naturally becomes, when will this fog lift? Not anytime soon. Indian weather officials are predicting a dense fog tomorrow as well. So if you have a flight to catch, do check for delays with your airline before you leave for the airport. And poor weather and visibility are not a new phenomenon. It happens every year around this time. So why did aviation authorities not plan for it? Given the chaos, it is clear that they were caught off guard. Passengers are raising these questions because this chaos is not just about the fog. It's also because of operational issues, like the runway situation at the Delhi airport. This airport has 4 runways. Out of these, 2 can handle takeoffs and landing in low visibility. But right now, only one of them is operational. Only one operational airport runway at the Delhi airport. The second is shut for maintenance. Perfect timing. The other 2 runways cannot handle fog. You need a special system for it, something called an Instrument Landing System, ILS. Imagine you're flying a plane in a computer game. You're using a joystick to control your aircraft, but suddenly your vision is impaired, your screen is broken. So you cannot see where the aircraft is going. You need help, like a button on your joystick, a feature that lights up a path for you to follow. That's what an instrument landing system or ILS does. It guides the pilot when the visibility is low. And just like a game, there are difficulty levels in the system. The ILS has 3 levels, Cat 1, Cat 2 and Cat 3. They signify different levels of visibility. In this kind of weather, the kind that we have right now, you need Cat 3B. That's the highest level. And it can handle extremely low visibility. It sounds like a system worth having on all runways, doesn't it? But for some reason, only 2 runways have it. Now, after the chaos erupted, Indian authorities swung into action. Today, India's aviation minister shared an action plan. His name is Jyotiraditya Scindia. He said work on the 2nd runway will be expedited. But it won't be enough. Airlines will have to do their bit as well. Deploy more planes that can fly in low visibility. Train more pilots who can fly on these runways. You see, pilots too need to undergo special training to fly in such conditions, in such low visibility. Not every pilot can handle this. So you need more experienced pilots on the roster. And this is urgent because we cannot have one of India's best and biggest airports grappling with such issues. The Delhi airport is among the best in the world, and with infrastructure like this, India hopes to become an aviation hub. It needs functioning runways. India also needs airlines that respect their passengers. Today, social media platforms are filled with harrowing tales like this one. A passenger had to endure as many as 6 delays. He was flying from Kolkata. His flight got delayed 6 times. He missed a connecting international flight. When he tried to cancel his ticket and pull out his luggage, he was told the airline does not do cancellations. Will the airline compensate this passenger for his loss? Then you have passengers trapped inside planes, waiting for hours for the takeoff, in some instances without food. So while the weather caused these delays and disruptions, surely airlines could have handled it better. Now to America. It's a frigid morning in the state of Iowa. There's snow, there's freezing temperatures, but in high school gyms and town halls, the political race is heating up. Republicans are out of their homes. They're heading to choose their presidential candidate. Iowa is the first race of the election year. There are many more to come, but this one really sets up the stage. So who do the Republicans want as their president? Well, polls say 1/3 of them want Donald Trump. So will Iowa be a Trump show? Or could things change, like Iowa's weather? Our next report tells you.
On Monday, the forecast in Iowa was grim. Temperatures were expected to fall below -20 degrees Celsius. Yet Republicans in the state stepped out. They braved the freezing temperatures to vote for who they thought should be the Republican presidential candidate. But why just one state? To understand that, let's look at the American presidential race. America has 2 political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. Both parties hold elections to choose their presidential nominee. Usually, there's an incumbent from one party, the one who is currently the US president. In this case, it's Joe Biden. He is the Democratic presidential candidate. On the other side, there are 4 to 5 candidates, out of which voters and party members will have to choose one. This is done in 2 ways. One is a primary. It's like a mini election. Voters cast their ballots, it's counted, and the winner is announced. Then there's the caucus. This is more of a town hall event. Party members gather in one place, they declare their preferences, and a candidate is chosen. Now, most states prefer primaries. But Iowa, like many Republican-leaning states, like a caucus. And it's a crucial one. The Iowa caucus kicks off the Republican presidential race. Whoever wins here has 2 advantages: an early lead in the race and momentum to win the following states. So who will it be for the Republicans this time around? There are 5 candidates, and of course, leading the field is Donald Trump. 48% want him as the presidential candidate. His campaign expects Iowa to be a blowout, like a Trump show.
And together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
Then there's Nikki Haley, the former US ambassador to the UN. She wasn't doing too well at the start of the race, but she has slowly and steadily gone up the field. She's polling at 20%, so still miles behind Donald Trump.
Another hard truth. I think President Trump was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies. But rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. You know I'm right. Chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. You don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos.
In third place, there's Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. He's polling at 16%. And lastly, there's Vivek Ramaswamy and Asa Hutchinson. They are both polling in single digits, so Trump has a towering lead. But that hasn't stopped him from taking digs at other candidates. Last week, he targeted Nikki Haley. He questioned the citizenship of her parents, a birther redux, just like he did with Barack Obama. But this week, Trump has a new target, Vivek Ramaswamy. He called Ramaswamy a fraud and a con man. Now, this is the first time he's criticized Ramaswamy, and it could be because of his campaign. They fear Ramaswamy could eat into the MAGA camp. How did Ramaswamy react? Surprisingly, he defended Trump, calling him the best president of the 21st century. But even as the candidates battle it out, Republican voters seem surer than the Democrats. At least 70% Republicans approve of Trump. Meanwhile, only 51% feel the same about Biden. Plus, his approval rating is at an all-time low. Biden's approval rating is at 33%. It's the lowest for any US president in 15 years. The Iowa caucus is just the start. The race will now move on to other states. Most people predict a 2020 rematch. But can Biden defeat Trump once again, or will Trump get his revenge?
So how bad is Pakistan's economy? Well, one headline should sum things up. Egg prices soar to 400 rupees in Lahore. Let that sink in. 400 Pakistani rupees for 12 eggs. We'll do the math first. One egg costs around 34 Pakistani rupees. In Indian currency, that's around 10 rupees. But eggs in India do not cost that much. You can get them for under 7 rupees here. Do you see the difference? Under 7 in India, around 10 in Pakistan. What explains this? Simple. Pakistan's inflation. Prices rose uncontrollably in 2023. Their average inflation was around 30%. So naturally, things are more expensive. And it's not just eggs. Everything costs more now in Pakistan, like onion. Onion is being sold for 250 Pakistani rupees. Or chicken, which costs 615 Pakistani rupees. Now, these are basic items. You will find very few kitchens without onion in Pakistan. So why is it more expensive? One reason is, of course, climate change. Recurring floods have destroyed the onion crop. But the main reason is this: bad policies. Let me take you back to 2010. Onion prices were reaching 3 figures here in India. So what did New Delhi do? We imported onion from Pakistan. We needed it. But look at the situation today. The same onion is almost 80% more expensive in Pakistan. That doesn't just happen randomly. It is the result of bad policies. What is Pakistan's government doing about it? They have placed price ceilings on essentials, basically a legal limit on how high the prices can go. But sellers don't really care. Onion has a ceiling of 175 Pakistani rupees, but like we said, it's being sold for 250 rupees a kilo. Tells you how bad the situation is. And inflation is just one factor. Take your pick. Chances are it's bad news. Like foreign reserves. Pakistan has more than $8 billion, more than $8 billion in July 2023. And now, just under $7 billion. So no good news there. What about total debt? In November 2023, it stood at 63 trillion Pakistani rupees. That was the debt, 63 trillion Pakistani rupees, which is around 225 billion US dollars. A major chunk of it was borrowed in the last few years. First by the Shehbaz Sharif government, then by the caretaker. Guess how much they borrowed? Almost 12 trillion rupees, which is around $42 billion. That's 42 billion in around 20 months. And we thought Imran Khan was bad. Amid all this chaos, Pakistan is set to hold elections. The date is February 8th. If all goes to plan, Nawaz Sharif will win. He will become Prime Minister again. But could there be a last-minute delay? And here's why we ask. Pakistan Senate has seen 3 resolutions this month. All of them demand the same thing, that elections be delayed. That's what the Senate wants. Now, the Senate is a chamber of Pakistan's parliament, the upper chamber. It is made up of 100 members. They're elected by Pakistan's provincial legislatures. Earlier this month, the Senate passed a resolution. It was proposed by an independent lawmaker. It sought to push Pakistan's election dates, to postpone them. Why? Because of cold weather and security concerns. Now, security concerns we get, but cold weather? If a cold wave can shatter your democracy, it says more about the democracy than the weather. Either way, the resolution passed. Only 14 senators were in attendance that day, so no one could shoot it down. And since then, 2 more resolutions have been tabled, the latest on Sunday. The question is, can it actually delay the poll? It looks unlikely now. For starters, the Senate resolution is non-binding. Pakistan's poll body has already rejected it. Plus, the major parties are not on board, like Imran Khan's PTI, the Sharif Pakistan Muslim League, and the Bhutto's PPP. None of these parties want a delay in the election. So chances are it won't work. And not like a delay will change anything. The army is managing this election from behind the scenes. And they have 2 goals: keep Imran Khan's party out and put Nawaz Sharif back in power. Now let's turn our attention to the other side of Asia, to Kim Jong-un's North Korea. The Hermit Kingdom has had some news to share today. It claims to have test-launched a new type of missile over the weekend. It's apparently a solid-fuel hypersonic missile. And the hypersonic part is interesting. This means the missile can fly at 5 times the speed of sound, if not faster. That kind of speed makes these missiles a nightmare for air defense systems. And North Korea says it has successfully test-launched a hypersonic missile. Even if this is an exaggeration, the question remains, how is North Korea making advanced weapons? Who is funding them? How do they have money for missiles when their people are reportedly starving? And should the world believe their claims? Here's a report.
Kim Jong-un is at it again. North Korea fired a missile yesterday, and South Korea and Japan were on full alert.
North Korea launched a ballistic missile from its inland at around 1400 hours, Japan's local time, yesterday.
North Korean state media confirmed this today with a triumphant announcement and a single photo. Pyongyang state media claims that it was a hypersonic missile. This means that it can travel at 5 times the speed of sound or faster. There's been a race to develop hypersonic missiles in recent years, a race that Russia and China have been winning, and the US has been struggling to keep pace in. Washington and its allies are still verifying North Korea's claims.
The rigorous analysis on specific details of North Korea's missile is being conducted by South Korean and the US and Japanese intelligence authorities.
North Korea has been ramping up its missile development program for the last few years. In 2022, Pyongyang test-fired close to 70 missiles. There were at least 36 missile tests last year. And Pyongyang keeps showing off its new technology. It has come out with intercontinental ballistic missiles that can span half the globe. The latest Hwasong 17 and 18 ICBMs are said to have a range of 15,000 kilometers or over 9,000 miles. They can hit a target anywhere in the US. This is what the US-based CSIS missile defense project says. So there is definitely a chance that North Korea is making advances in hypersonics as well. But the question remains, how? How does one of the world's poorest nations develop the technology to make hypersonic missiles? How does it keep getting material for missiles despite international sanctions? North Korea is likely getting its technical know-how through Iran. The West's other great adversary has been helping out its fellow pariah state. Iran has a history of cooperation with North Korea. Last November, Iran unveiled its Fatah-2 hypersonic missile, and now North Korea is showing off its own. It could be a coincidence, but the timing is definitely suspicious. North Korea also shares land borders with China and Russia. Pyongyang has its people in both countries, and they help it get both technology and supplies, including contraband. Now, of course, Beijing and Moscow both deny flouting international sanctions, but new reports of their complicity keep surfacing every so often. So how does North Korea pay for all this? After all, even staunch allies won't give Kim Jong-un unlimited resources for free. Part of the answer is crypto. Cryptocurrencies have been a boon for all manner of illegal activities, and North Korea has readily turned to it for its missile funding needs. Just one Pyongyang-backed hacker group has reportedly stolen over $3 billion in crypto over the past 6 years. North Korea stole about $600 million in crypto last year alone. You know how much North Korea's missile test spree in 2022 cost? $400 to $650 million, at least. And some of the stolen cryptocurrencies definitely go into funding this. That isn't the country's only source of income. Pyongyang also sells some of the weapons it produces. These arms sales are essential for North Korea's economy. The missile tests are effectively explosive ads for their products, which would explain why the test took place yesterday. North Korea's foreign minister is in Russia right now. New bilateral agreements are expected to be signed, and if the countries are to ink new arms deals, then the hypersonic test was a good sales pitch.
Be it the Golden Globes or the Governor's Awards, it's official, the 2024 award season is underway. So let me ask you this, what makes a good award show? The nominations and the wins, of course, the on-stage and off-stage drama, and the red carpet. Today, red carpets are the mainstay of award ceremonies. In many cases, they even upstage the awards. Sure, they're about gowns, glitz and glamour, but they do so much more. Red carpets can make or break careers. They fuel multi-million-dollar deals and even manufacture and sell brands. In short, red carpets are an economy in their own right. And whom do they benefit? Our next report tells you.
Ancient Greece explored a salmagundi of spheres. Politics, philosophy, arts, science, you name it. Its contributions to humanity are wide-ranging, but some are less talked about than others, including the Crimson Path. Well, the contemporary world has a less ominous-sounding name for it. We call it the red carpet. It was traditionally used to welcome royalty. Today, it still welcomes them, along with film royalty, political dignitaries, even a bunch of teenagers tick-tocking their way through it. That's because the red carpet denotes glitz and glamour. It's the mainstay of today's awards ceremonies, premieres and galas. Often enough, it's the focus of a ceremony. And just as often, it's utilized by movie stars not just to set themselves apart from us mere mortals, but also to earn big money. Because the Crimson Path has rolled out the red carpet for a microeconomy. It's the direct result of the rise of social media and the growing influence of those behind the scenes. Stylists, hair and makeup artists, photographers, nail technicians, trainers, dermatologists, nutritionists. It's a very long list. Until recently, such professionals functioned in the background. Today, they are image architects. They work together to curate a celebrity's image, then maximize it. Because the red carpet is nothing but an ultimate advertising opportunity. It has been a carefully cultivated marketing tool, and for generations, it has boosted a variety of bank accounts, but mostly that of actors. For instance, the Barbie star Margot Robbie attended the 2018 Oscars. She was wearing Chanel. Her team milked this opportunity. She became the new ambassador for the brand. Michelle Williams did this with Louis Vuitton. Leonardo DiCaprio did it with Giorgio Armani. This is a completely common arrangement. Stars sign up with a big brand and make certain appearances every year in their clothes, shoes and bags. This is an open secret in the industry. If you weren't aware, we'll make things even clearer. No, your favorite actress did not pick up her own gown. She simply chose it from a limited selection of options under very specific guidelines. What we see on the red carpet is created by global brands, and it's often bought. Like this $30 million diamond that Lady Gaga wore. It was sponsored. Or this chic Dior dress worth $4 million that Jennifer Lawrence wore. Again, sponsored. Lawrence had a $15 million deal with Dior, meaning she would only wear that brand to red carpet events. Yet there is industry-wide discomfort to talk about this. Celebrities rarely declare the endorsements they receive or the money that comes with it. But according to reports, stylists get anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 when they broker deals between brands and celebrities. Actors get anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 for a single red carpet appearance. Sometimes the figures go up to 7 digits. Many actors make more money on their red carpet endorsements than on being an actor. Influencers also benefit from this. They are the hottest red carpet accessory, so they're invited to show up at awards ceremonies or movie premieres. They can earn up to $10,000 per deal. In its essence, what you see on red carpets resembles what you see in movies. Most of it is not real. Red carpets are the ultimate marketing tool, and they're not going away anytime soon, because they're a mutually beneficial relationship. Celebrities get to look great, brands get a famous person to wear their creation, and the rest of the world gets to ogle them.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Torrential rain and flooding wreaks havoc in Mauritius and the French territory of Reunion. In Iceland, drone footage shows molten lava setting houses ablaze, and a rare white penguin was spotted chilling in Antarctica. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 2001, Wikipedia was launched. It's an online encyclopedia, free for all. The name is a mix of the Hawaiian word wiki, which means quick, and encyclopedia. That's where pedia comes from. As of 2024, Wikipedia has 6.8 million articles in 300 languages. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.